Assistant Secretary of State, Joel Rubin. Joel, welcome back to the show. How much of an influence will Griner have on the Biden administration when it comes to Gershkovich?
Well, Marcel, it's great to be with you and just to discuss this. This is a real affront to journalism, to truth, to an American doing his job in Russia. And so for Brittany Griner to speak out so forcefully and so quickly, that's incredibly helpful. And we've already seen the impact. On Sunday, Secretary of State Tony Blinken called his counterpart, the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, to protest this imprisonment, this illegitimate incarceration. And so her raising it to that level clearly has an impact. Hopefully keeping it in the public eye will have an impact. But the Russians hold the cards on whether or not Evan gets released, and that's unfortunately out of her hands.
They hold the cards, and obviously our relationship with Russia isn't the greatest right now. Is it the right time for the Biden administration to do something about his release?
It is. It always is. We've got Americans held captive in a variety of countries that are hostile actors to the United States. Iran comes to mind as one where there are several Americans imprisoned, and there's ongoing tensions, but there's also a channel where our diplomats do speak through intermediaries to the Iranians and sometimes directly about releasing these individuals. This for President Biden is always a very high priority. He asks for briefings on individuals specifically. And so the idea of being able to engage on the hard national security issues that we're dealing with Russia, yes, that continues. But there is a parallel track on getting out detained Americans, unjustly detained Americans at that. And this certainly is that type of case.
Now, we also mentioned another big name here, which is Paul Whelan. Will this news help bring that conversation up again to help him bring him back here in the States?
So, your heart has to go out to the Whelan family and to Paul Whelan, who has been there. And we've seen other Americans come out and him still stay. That is something that the Whelans, however, in the last time when Brittany was released, they were given a heads up that it would take place where she would come out and he would stay, and they were appreciative of that. It's heart-wrenching to see what they're going through. All of these cases come together, and I think that's the big picture point here, is that getting Americans out of harm's way when they're unjustly detained is a high national priority, and that means trades are going to have to be made as well. And right now, it's still sitting good that Brittany is here, despite the trade that had to be made. It was a good win for the United States, clearly for her. And I think she can continue to make that argument as well, because there will be potentially some type of deal, and that will require some costs on our part. So to have advocates like her championing those deals will be very helpful for moving them forward.
Yeah, Joel, and of course there's a lot of support online for Griner when she was overseas for about, 10 months. And will that kind of help? We know that's going to obviously help this case with bringing that name up in these newscasts and keep the conversation going. But now that he has filed an appeal, what comes next? What's the next step for him?
Marcel, the tragedy here is that Evan, the reporter, He's fluent in Russian. He moved to Russia. He loves Russia. His family immigrated from Russia. He's in his early 30s. So he's going to go through the process. He has tremendous Russian colleagues. He's been working there for years. So he's going to go through the legal process. But we all kind of know that's a sham. He is a legitimate reporter, was doing reporting. And the problem that he had is that he was writing critical, accurate reporting about what's happening inside Russia, how the Russian people are concerned about the war, how the economy is very damaged by the sanctions. And that was the message that the Russian government clearly couldn't tolerate, so they silenced him by arresting him. So he'll have to go through this process, as everyone seems to have to go through, but it's going to be the diplomatic discussions that are going to really determine his fate.
An ongoing conversation. Joel Rubin, as always, thank you so much for your time here on the show.
Thanks, Marcel.
We're going to be right back after a quick break. Please stay with us.